Welcome to Meditation Amsterdam. My name is Pablo. Today we get to talk about how spiritual practices and practices of self-cultivation, integration, and regulation are not really that optional for you if you are a highly sensitive person. Now, if you've been tuning into the channel, you will remember there was a video in which I take issue at the idea of the empath identity. And I'm not really backtracking on that. I still believe that identities are something to be held very lightly as opposed to enforced, because they can be very limiting. And in that case, I was talking about the identity of someone who's quote unquote an empath. But with that said, it's very clear to me, both in my own life and in the life of people that I work with, that there is such thing as people who are more empathic than the average individual, and also far more sensitive. If you recognize yourself in this category, let's make it into a category for the moment. If you recognize yourself here, you may recognize things such as you have a lower threshold for disingenuity and incoherence in your life. And you may find yourself not being able to withstand things that simply seem wrong, things that other people just brush off. Or you may also notice that events that for other people would only be mildly annoying end up creating trauma for you. So other typical elements would be you are more sensitive to energies in a room or the energy of a person that you're speaking to, and you often find yourself imbibing that energy and trying to regulate it for them, trying to make them feel good, and taking it upon yourself to, due to this high degree of empathy, to try to make sure that the other people are okay. So all these are fairly noticeable traits. If you have them, you will recognize them immediately. And they come with a cost if we don't know how to manage them, because our system, being more sensitive, is simply exposed to more input. And therefore, there's a chance that it'll implode or topple over because it cannot withstand that amount of input. There's a very interesting moment in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody in which Freddie Mercury is caught doing drugs. And he says something along the lines of, most of us or some of us require a bit of anesthetics to go through this life. And that's the classic indication of someone who's highly creative but also incredibly sensitive. So this is all an intro to put into context what we are facing here, which is we are facing a system that is simply more open and is taking in more. And therefore, it's no use comparing it to the average individual, if there is such a thing, or people who are perhaps less sensitive. And also, it is very clear to me that if you leave it to chance, that things tend to go a little bit sideways. Because being highly sensitive, you will find your emotional stability being relatively low. You will find yourself in ego dystonic or dysphoric states often, because of all that's coming in and all that's being processed all the time. And in order to regulate that, you will tend to either withdraw, right? So you will disengage, or you will become avoidant, because every time you put yourself out there, something comes and feels like it's bashing you. Or you will use less than wholesome means to self-regulate. And this could be, the usual suspects such as drugs, sex, social media, gaming, even socializing can become such a thing. So there's of course degrees of this, but at the end of the day, there is only one wholesome choice for a system that is so open and so sensitive, and that is to become more highly integrated and more or stronger rather at self-regulating, so that it can metabolize experience better. The degree to which you need this will be the degree to which you are highly sensitive. The more sensitive you are, the more you will require your system, your mind and body, your neurophysiology to be tightly knit, to be in a high degree of yoga or integration. That high degree of integration will make it so that your neurophysiology can regulate itself better under the higher degree of input that is receiving all the time. That ability to self-regulate better will make it so that that higher degree of input can be better metabolized without toppling your system over, without having you implode or seek for resources or crutches that are not wholesome in order to self-regulate from the outside in. The practices that we're talking about are in some cases soothing practices. So things like white gaze, which I've talked about in the past, knowing how to regulate your breath, knowing how to feel emotions when they're flaring up. All that is, I would classify as soothing practices. And then there will be practices that are more on the cultivation end of the spectrum. And those are things that you do on a daily basis to, over time, transform your system so that you don't need the tactical anymore. You don't need stress management tactics, but really your system has simply become more resilient, more oriented towards experience, because you know that you can face it and that you can process it. And that is not going to make you implode or doubt yourself or go into a mental spinning of your wheels into an overthinking mode, because you can simply process experience as it comes. So in summary, this is a way for me to state that there is such thing as highly empathic or highly sensitive individuals. So it's not to discount that. In the previous video, I was simply adopting the identity of being such a thing, because that can be limiting in and of itself. And that when you are such an individual, the establishing of cultivation practices that are good for your self-regulation and integration is, to me, almost non-negotiable. It's something that you really need to embark on to make sure that your system can withstand the amount of input that is coming through without imploding or toppling over, so that you become non-avoidant, that you become experience prone or experience facing, because you know that you can self-regulate and you know that you can metabolize the experience without having to go into overthinking or becoming defensive and so on. I'm very curious what your thoughts are on the topic, so do share them in the comment section. And also, as usual, keep in mind that if you think this content is valuable, then other people may benefit from it, in which case your liking, sharing, and subscribe it make it far more available to others, and it's also very motivating for me. And I'll be back with more videos pretty soon. And until then, cheerio, and thanks for listening.